Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA draft and the Motor City Hoops.
And of course, guys, if you are tuning in live with us right now on YouTube, leave the like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. If you're listening on podcast, I think you guys could leave comments on the Spotify and on Apple Podcasts or whatever Apple's thing is. I don't have an Apple phone, but regardless, do all that stuff. All that stuff really helps us out. And look, we got a bunch of questions submitted ahead of time. Plus, we got some fun stuff to talk about with that Pacers game. And look, meaningful basketball in January, Blake. I'm just going to leave it there. Meaningful basketball in January. How about that?
Yeah, it's awesome. Every game's fun. I mean, the Pacers game on Thursday night was a little bit of a letdown. It knew it was going to happen at some point or another. I feel like we might need to change our recording schedule because through all these wins, I think we've recorded after losses like the past two times we've recorded. So maybe it's us.
And maybe we got been like 2 or 3, right? Since the start of the new year.
Yeah, the Warriors lost last time, and now the Indiana lost. But no, it's fun overall. Definitely a disappointing game against Indiana, but hey, they have an opportunity to go out and beat a really good Phoenix team, and then we have the Lions right after it. So it's just an exciting weekend overall.
Let's dive in a little bit to that Pacers game before we get into the large swath of questions that we did get. I mean, where do you really want to start? I can read off a couple of stats here from the starters. I mean, by the numbers, a lot of the starters seem to have a pretty good game. But of course, if you watched, you'd know like Cade struggled a little bit to put the ball in the basket. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. and Asar Thompson both struggled defensively. Like, where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, I think it was just, and I can go in more specifically to one area, but I think overall it might have, the game against Indiana, like their game plan just exposed all the weaknesses that this roster has that, like, that we all talk about the inability to guard stretch fives. Miles Turner makes 8 threes or however many he makes. And then the game plan was clearly to, take the ball away from Cade and just make the other players beat you. And the shots weren't really falling. Like if you look at the starting lineup, the Tim Hardaway Jr. had a nice game. He had that nice stretch to start off. But outside of him, he was 4 for 9 from 3. There was only one other starter that made a 3. That was Cade, and he was 1 for 7. Malik Beasley didn't have a good shooting night. So I think overall it was just a disappointing night. But they still, like, they made that comeback, made it interesting a little, just couldn't get over that hump. So I think you can't go undefeated the rest of the way. You knew some of these games are going to happen here and there. Would have been really nice to get this one overall. But yeah, it's just, I felt in general that Indiana had executed their game plan really well. Like Andrew Nembhard played great defense on Cade, forced a bunch of turnovers, and then off the bench you have TJ McConnell doing the same thing, being a pest, and then combine that just with Miles Turner being out of his mind, having just that stretch 5. I thought it was a tough matchup for the Pistons, but who knows? I think you have one more game against Indiana. Like, the Pistons beat them in that in-season tournament game. So maybe you go out and get them again. I just thought it wasn't their night, essentially.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it definitely was one of those nothing's going right kind of nights for the Pistons, especially offensively. You had Malik Beasley, you mentioned Tobias Harris, both of those guys missing not only threes that they should have made and usually make, but that would have been really big in the moment that they were attempted. So a lot of that stuff just wasn't going. I'm really curious, though, to see if the defensive strategy that the Pacers used is deployed now more often against the Pistons, because I thought it was actually really, really smart. When they were doubling Cade, they weren't just sending any random person, right? They were blitzing screens when the screens were above the break, right above the break from that corner 3-point line. Any screen above that, they blitzed. They came out and they trapped it. And then on top of that, when Cade would get down underneath the 3-point line, they weren't just sending a strong help defender. They were actually sending a double from behind him. It was a blindside double almost every single time. And it really did seem to frustrate, maybe not frustrate, but fluster Cade a little bit. He had 7 turnovers. Yeah, 7 turnovers in that game. And a lot of them were forced. They weren't just Cade being careless. They were forced. I think 2 or 3 of them may have been the carelessness popping back up just a little bit. But the vast majority of these were forced. And then you pack on top of this that when Cade sat down, right? So when Cade was on the court, he was obviously the focus of what the Pacers were doing. They were sending double teams. They're being very smart about all of that. When Cade sat down, they kept being aggressive. They were blitzing Marcus Sasser on ball screens. They were sending extra guys when Tobias Harris would post up, when the Pistons were asking him to be the lead guy off the bench. Essentially, what they were doing were saying, hey, we are really afraid of Cade Cunningham, and we want someone else to beat us. And then we don't think anyone else can, right? They did not think that the Pistons had the ball handlers to handle that kind of pressure outside of Cade Cunningham. And it's kind of hard to argue with it. So I'm intrigued to see if this is something that the team is now needing to feel out a little bit over the next couple of weeks, if we might see this again from multiple opponents now. Maybe this is a blueprint.
Yeah, and you wonder as you inch closer to the deadline, like, is it something that you see and try and go address? Like, I just felt like at points, I mean, definitely when Cade was off the floor, there just wasn't enough creation out there. Things just like weren't happening. And I mean, you have Marcus Sasser, who played a good game, but I just think in general he's being forced into this role that might not be the best for him. Like, I think he'd be better more off the ball, and it's just a nature of the Jaden Ivey injury, and then how the Pistons roster is made up. I thought the game against Indiana, it would have been really nice to have that veteran point guard, ball handler, initiator on the back end of your roster, who's maybe not even in the rotation most nights, to just go in there and sort of try and calm things down and make other things happening when Indiana is pressuring the ball as much as they did. I agree. I think that might be what we see other teams try to do more often than not, just to pressure Cade. But I think there have been times where teams have pressured him and he's been good at getting around it too. So I was really impressed with like Indiana's backcourt defenders. Like, I thought Andrew Nembhard was great. And TJ McConnell, for that matter. Like, how nice would it be for the Pistons to have a player like that right now? So yeah, in general, it's like, don't worry, definitely a little come back down to earth after all the wins, and especially after that game against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, where Cade did what he did, but no reason to panic or anything. I feel like the way the Pacers game planned it and what we've seen, like where we've seen the offense slow and just other holes in this roster are stuff that we've been talking about. So it's only like, I'm sure it's stuff that's being talked about in the front office as well, behind the scenes.
Well, 2 thoughts really quickly. One with Cade Cunningham, you're right. Like, I think that this was a little bit of a fallback down to earth, right? And if you just look at the stat line that he put up, I don't think that there is as much maybe consternation about him as being the only ball handler in that starting lineup. If he just made more of his shots, he was 7 for 21, 1 of 7 from 3. That's an off night. I know Nembhard pressured him, right, and did a really nice job getting underneath him, but that's also something that we've seen Cade Cunningham torch the Pacers on before, specifically Andrew Nembhard doing that exact same thing. So I think, his scoring load, he was just a little off that night, and that's going to happen. That's fine. The 7 turnovers were a problem, but again, with a lot of those being forced on those double teams, and he's adding in those 9 assists that could have been more if some more guys made some shots. Like, I don't actually think he played that bad of a game. But what I do think is interesting is with how the Pacers set up their defensive scheme, like we mentioned, it's just a lack of ball handling, right? But it's actually two. It's two specific roles that the Pistons are missing, and it's filled by Jaden Ivey when he's healthy. Both of those roles. I think this was really the first game where the Pistons really missed Jaden Ivey's ability to, one, take ball handling pressure off of Cade when Cade is getting trapped like this, but then two, when Cade sits down, having a guy that's not only a competent playmaker for others, because I do think that Sasser he can fulfill that role, but it's the ability to get downhill and actually force the defense to rotate that they just don't have right now outside of Cade. And so this, to me, this was the first, man, no Jaden Ivey, really, really bummer kind of night.
Yeah, it's weird when you're like winning so many games when Ivy goes out. Like it sort of just moved your mind away from like what he could bring. And yeah, I totally agree. It's a perfect night to have Ivy playing off the ball and as an outlet for Cade when he is getting all that pressure. And then you put Asar Thompson in the starting lineup, who still has a lot to work on with his handle and just offensively in general. So yeah, totally agree there. I mean, it just stinks that Ivy's out still because all the wins sort of masked everything he does bring to the team. But when you do have a game like that, it's just like, yep, could really use that guy out there right now, and he's not going to be out there for a while, which stinks. But at least when you're at full strength, that you do have different looks and different like pitches you can throw at whatever the defense is throwing at you.
All right, last thing before we get into the questions, but what did you think about the Pistons defense in this game? I mean, honestly, giving up 111 points to the Indiana Pacers is not bad. It's not awful. That's pretty close to what they're averaging for the year. And it's also not like, you gave up 130 or anything ridiculous like that. While Siakam had a really nice night, he had 26 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. I actually thought Asar Thompson did an admirable job against him. Siakam was hitting a lot of tough shots. Holland and Harris struggled though, and we'll get to Miles Turner and what happened there. But what did you think about the defense in general?
Yeah, I think the glaring thing is just still the inability to guard stretch fives, and it's a hard thing for any team to do. I don't think it's solely a Pistons problem, but anytime we play a team that has a center like that, it's what stands out. I thought I wasn't at the game, just watching on the broadcast. I felt like I heard, and this is a good thing, by the way, I thought I heard JB or someone else on the bench just calling out more like what the rotations would be, or just someone is watching the ball and I hear someone from the bench yell like behind you, behind you. I noticed that a little bit more. And I thought the Pistons like recovered well. I thought they competed, but it might have just been more of a product of it's not our night offensively, and then we have to like get back in the zone on defense. I thought Cade competed defensively pretty well as also. And I will say the only other thing on the defense, I am thrilled that TJ McConnell only had 2 points. It seems like he kills the Pistons every time he plays them. So that was a nice trophy I'll take from it as well. Like he was 1 for 7 on the night. It's not like he wasn't trying to do anything. It seems like when the Pistons play the Pacers, TJ McConnell can do whatever he wants near the rim, and he goes on like a 10-0 run by himself. And that didn't happen last night, which was good.
Credit a little bit to Marcus Sasser there. He kind of gave TJ McConnell the TJ McConnell treatment. I mean, he was pressuring him up underneath them, making him really uncomfortable handling the ball. And that was fun. That was nice to see. There were even a couple like impactful backcourt pressures out of Marcus Sasser on McConnell specifically, which is usually, again, that's the role that McConnell plays for the Pacers. What did you think of Ron Holland, I guess, defensively? Because it was a tough night for him. Siakam took him to school a couple times in the post. Greg Kelser actually on the broadcast to a little bit of comedy. Siakam was posting up Ron Holland, and he takes one dribble, and Kelser says, "All right, Ron, like, look out. He's going to come and spin back to the right." And then seconds later, that's exactly what Siakam does, and he gets an and one. But, I thought this was a little bit of maybe a little bit of a welcome to the NBA kind of moment. He was guarding up a position, which he usually doesn't do against an all-star, and Siakam got him a few times.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you play like just under 8 minutes, pick up 5 fouls. Like it wasn't a good night. I mean, I feel like it's gonna happen when you're a rookie, and especially a rookie that's as young as he is. It's still nice to see that like he's getting those assignments and being tested. Where you have to battle with it is when the team is competitive and fighting for something, and if it puts you in a bad position and ends up contributing to a loss like it did at this point. I think, yeah, overall the matchup was tough. He's not gonna have someone like that going at him every game. But I think overall maybe it is a little bit of a recipe, and you will see a little bit of him being tested a bit more. So yeah, off night in general, but I think overall just hopefully stay on the floor. Like if he is getting cooked for the lack of a better word, like he was, like just find ways to stay on the floor, which he got in some foul trouble last night, which is tough.
And it was bound to happen eventually. I mean, he's been playing
Yeah.
really, really well, and he hasn't really had to go up against someone that's that big, that agile, that good with the ball, and also likes to post up like that. I mean, it was just one of learning experience, right? Learning experience. Last thing, and then into the questions, but on the topic of the defense, Miles Turner hits 8 threes. 7 of them were over Jalen Duren. The one that he hit over Isaiah Stewart was at the end of a shot clock, falling away, off balance, heavily contested. I still don't quite understand how he made it because it didn't even hit the rim. But the rest of that damage was all on Jalen Duren. Fives who could stretch the floor, really give him fits. Is it why? Why? Why is it? Why is it? Because it's not the same with Isaiah Stewart. It's not.
I think it's just like how he's being used, like just playing in drop. It's just tough to recover, and then there's not much help that puts up a contest in general. So it's really tough because when the opponent is pressuring Cade the way they are, and then they also have a target on the defensive end, like it's just a recipe for disaster, I guess. But yeah, it wasn't just Duren. I think like Isaiah, there were points in the game where it felt like whatever the Pacers were putting up was going down. Like you mentioned the Turner 3 over Stewart. Siakam had that, it wasn't a 3, but that shot at the end of the shot clock where Stewart played pretty good defense, contested the shot pretty well, and it still fell. At this point with Duren, I'm sort of wondering, I don't want to say like it is what it is because he's still young, but and he's looked a little better defensively in the past couple weeks, but it's still just like these things happen, and he's been able to be disruptive at times, but still the weaknesses that we've been hoping to see him take a leap. Maybe he's getting there a little bit, but a little slower than we want. And it makes you ask the question, like, is it just going to be it is what it is situation? He's a good rebounder, a lob threat, and can also play make a little bit as a big. And then is that worth it? That's where I'm at with Duren right now. Just wondering what he can become, because I think the player that we're seeing like just might be his mold. And that's that's okay. It's a useful player and he's impactful in some ways, but it's like, is that going to be your starting center on a roster that you're hoping can take the next step and contend, and you just need an anchor of your defense? And is that not what Jalen Duren will be one day?
Let's stick on this for a second because we actually got it as a question. This is from our guy KCP for 3 in the DBB comments. Says, where are you guys at on Jalen Duren? So you just gave part of an answer, and I'll obviously let you expand on that even more now that we actually have it pulled up. But the only thing that I'll say and kind of add on to this is, look, the difference in this game against the Pacers between when Duren was guarding Miles Turner and when Isaiah Stewart was guarding Miles Turner, and I do believe that you can generally extrapolate this into most games, but it was especially true against the Pacers. The difference is that Isaiah Stewart is very aware of his surroundings and where his guy is, what his guy wants to do, whereas Jalen Duren is really not at times. And then Isaiah Stewart hustles his butt off. The guy does not walk hardly ever. He's sprinting as hard as he can every which way that he goes. What this leads to, and why it seems to me that Isaiah Stewart is so much better against these stretch bigs, is one, that he doesn't lose them in transition. Okay, Jalen Duren at least 2 or 3 times that I can think of lost Turner in transition as a trail man, and should not have. When a guy's that good of a shooter as a big, he's coming back on the trail. You cannot lose him. You need to be close enough to contest. So that's one. But it's also in sometimes with pick and pops, he'd lose him, things like that. Isaiah Stewart doesn't do that. Add on that in those positions where you're maybe not in the best spot, because they play drop with Isaiah Stewart too, which you rightly bring up. It's extremely difficult to play drop against stretch bigs. The reason Stewart's still better at it, he still contests the shot. Just point blank. He still sprints. He gets there, gets his hand up. He'll fly by if he has to, but he's got a hand in the face on the jump shot. And it makes a difference versus just the jog out with your hand up, or maybe not even that sometimes. And look, that's where I'm at with Jalen Duren right now too. Defensively, it's been slightly better. He's blocked more shots. He had, I think, 2 against the Pacers. Yeah, he had 2 blocks, which I'll take. That's good. One of them was a really nice block against a Miles Turner dunk, which was incredible highlight reel play. But it's not there consistently, and overall the defense is still real bad. Real bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's just point blank where it is. So take the baton, my friend.
No, I'm with you. And I do feel bad because it seems like, I mean, the conversation, it's just like sometimes you feel like you're harping on it, and obviously don't mean to do that, but that just is the next step that this team needs Jalen Duren to take for him to be their starting center of the future. And it's like, is that what it's going to be right now? Because we don't even have Asar Thompson in this mix, and like what his limitations offensively, and then pairing those two together who neither can shoot the ball right now, maybe ever. And then just defensively, like Asar brings you something on that end, but you're hoping for more from Jalen Duren. So like, again, I don't want to say, are we seeing the player that he is right now, because he is so early in his career. He's the youngest player in his draft class. So there's still a lot of growth that he can take. It's just, you were hoping that this year you'd see him make that growth. So what you bring up with the awareness, I feel like there's more, I guess, validity to seeing that this year, because we've noticed it every year and he has all these games under his belt. I still think he can be a valuable player for this team, but I think Isaiah Stewart is incredibly valuable to this team. And if you go out and acquire a starting center and you want to keep Isaiah Stewart, like, what does that mean for Jalen Duren? I think it's a really tough spot. And I don't know, like, where I'm at right now, I guess, is like, no, he's a good rebounder, and can bring your offense like additional opportunities. Know he's a good lob threat, and I think that's a luxury for Cade Cunningham to have, honestly. And he also like shows some flashes playmaking and can even like dribble it a little bit sometimes, but just never like he's never going to be that big who can do what Miles Turner does shooting the ball. And then you couple that with everything else we're hoping for defensively, it just makes me wonder like where it fits in the long term. And so yeah, it's a difficult conversation, but I think it's a valid one at this point.
It is. It is really difficult, and it's just kind of a, like you said, like you don't want to harp on it and always kind of feel bad when it feels like we have to. But for the type of player that he is, he has to be a good defender in order to be a starting level player at that 5 spot, because he can't shoot, right? Like that. That's just the hard truth of it. If you look up and down the rosters of teams in the NBA right now, if a 5-man can't shoot the ball, then he's an impactful defender. If at least it's on a good team. Okay. Otherwise, these guys are backups. And I do think that some of this gets a little bit unfair with Jalen Duren, only because he was a late lottery pick. Okay. If all that he becomes, all quote unquote, is a backup 5, that's actually really good. That is perfectly solid value for where he was selected in the draft. It's just that the Pistons have placed a lot on his plate, and he does have a lot of physical potential and attributes that you are worth investing in. So now all of this pressure gets put on him, and we have to view him in that vein, right, through that lens of, can he be a starter one day? And it is just really hard to see, because look, from the Pistons perspective, if you're taking this from a long-term view, contract conversations are coming up right about now. And at least as far as I know, and as far as I've seen, it's a little bit more, it correlates, I should say, more with individual development, skill development, more so than age, years in the NBA. This is year 3. We have not seen much growth on the defensive end over 3 years. We haven't seen much growth as a playmaker, as a passer in the short roll over 3 years. He's become, I think, a more impactful offensive rebounder over 3 years. I think he's really improved his hands. He can catch balls that he lost a little bit when he was a rookie. I think that's a notable improvement. Like, he's not stagnated. He's gotten better over these 3 seasons, 2.5 seasons. But that tracks much more closely with where a guy's going to go, more so than age, because there just are not a lot of Pascal Siakams that are in the league for a while, and all of a sudden, they burst and they become something really special. So yeah, that, you got anything more to add? That's where I'm at with Jalen Duren, and I don't want to keep piling on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hope this doesn't sound like piling on, but I think just with going into the extension talks with him and Ivy, like Ivy's obviously an interesting conversation too.
Especially with the injury.
Yeah, exactly. But just looking at the guys who signed rookie extensions last year, like Cade was one of them. There's no big men on that list besides Evan Mobley and Sengun. So I'd have to go back to others to just look more. But like, and then notable players who didn't sign a rookie extension last year that were eligible to. Santi Aldama. I feel like if Santi Aldama was on the Pistons, like he would have signed some sort of extension. And like the reason I looked at that is because I was trying to think of a comp deal for Jalen Duren, because it's not going to be anything close to a max. And it, like, I don't, essentially, like, my point is, I think he's in that camp with Aldama right now, that he's not going to sign an extension and just see how things go. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just because the player is eligible to sign an extension, like, doesn't mean it's the right move for the team or the player. And I think that might be the case in this instance.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So let's go on to this one here from Team Raf in the DBB comments. I thought this was kind of an interesting one. It says, looking at the offensive rating and defensive rating so far for this season and comparing it to the first 40 games, of last season, most of the improvement this year seems to be on the defensive side of the ball rather than the offensive side of the ball. He wants to know, why do we think that is? Why does it seem like the Pistons have improved more defensively rather than offensively over the offseason?
Not to oversimplify it, but I feel like it's because the team isn't uh, getting blown out as much. Like they're competing, they're in. I mean, obviously, when you win more games, your offensive rating is going to tilt higher to defensive rating. So I think, and also just like the number of exciting games that this team plays, like there haven't been many nights where they've been blown out and you give up a ton of points, a ton of more points than you score. So and that's definitely, like, I don't mean to ignore some of the competitiveness on defense that some of these players individually have taken. Like, I think Cade's been a two-way player this year. What you're getting out of Ron Holland as a rookie is incredible. I think Isaiah Stewart has taken a huge leap. We already knew he was a great defender, but I think he's one of the best rim protectors in the league, far and away for a guy at his size. But I think in general, defensive rating wise, it's just like this team is playing competitive basketball, and they're there's care and just like intensity behind every minute, and every possession. They're taking things more seriously, and I mean, just how the season went last year, I feel like that wasn't always the case, and you shut guys down at certain points in the year. But overall, I just think it speaks to the job that like JB Bickerstaff has done, like came in, and also like the buy-in that he has from these guys. So in general, although I think there is a conversation here about like individual players who've contributed and helped the defense be where it is, like I still don't think this team is a good defensive team. And I think just how much the defensive rating has went down, and the Pistons have subsequently moved up in the defensive rating rankings, I think it's just more lends itself to the competitive basketball that they're playing.
Yeah, I agree. And let me know if you think that this is kind of a wacky or out there answer to this question. But am I crazy for thinking that part of the improvement to the defensive side of the ball this year is because they've gotten better on offense? They're averaging 3 more points per game. And remember, an average, it contains a lot of volatility to it, right? And the Pistons this year, their points per game total, at least to my eye, has been a lot more consistent than it was last season. Last season, you really had a roller coaster. This year, it's been very consistent. So the fact that it's 3 points per game more as a team is actually really big, because it's almost always more points that they're scoring. Not only that, they're making more threes. They're shooting a better percentage from three. They're shooting about the same percentage from the floor, but they're taking more shots. Like, all of that stuff helps the team control the pace a little bit more than they were able to do last year, right? Making the shots, forcing the team to take the ball out, bring it back up. Now you're playing in the half court, things like that. So I actually kind of think that part of the defensive improvement is just that they're scoring more consistently and more, and that makes the game a little bit slower.
For sure. I think like it's definitely important to look at offensive, defensive rating and net rating, but I think they're definitely like offensive and defensive rating are definitely related to each other. And just like in the game, I feel like when you're making shots, you're less like in your head on the defensive end. Like you're not thinking about something that happened before. And I feel like a great example of what you're saying, Wes, is Malik Beasley. Like he's up there in the top 5 3-pointers made in the entire league this year. I was not expecting Malik Beasley to come in here and really give you much of anything on defense, but I think he's he's made some big plays at times, like game sealing steals and just being disruptive at certain times. I was not expecting that at all. And I think for him, I'm not saying that he's not competitive when the shots aren't falling, but I think he's brought something on that end. It's not always pretty at times, but I think when he's making shots after doing the shimmy or whatever we're calling it, like he's getting back there and competing. So I think a guy like that is a perfect use case for what you were saying.
100%. Because you're spot on, right? He's not a great defender, but you know what he is really good at on the defensive end? He's a very good communicator. He is talking all the time. You hear him communicate. You can hear him on the broadcast sometimes. Him and Isaiah Stewart, they are both very, very loud on defense, talking to their teammates. That's really valuable. So even though he himself is not a plus defender at that 2-guard position, he's struggled actually quite a bit as an individual defender. I'm with you. I think he brings a little bit of value to the team more broadly because he is aware. He's watching what's going around him. He's talking. He's communicating, and that's really important, especially on a young team that doesn't really have other guys doing that yet. Like you wish that Asar Thompson was a little bit more vocal, or at least I do. I can't really hear him all that often on the broadcast. He's an incredible individual defender. So that's just something that, he can improve on a little bit over time. And when you have veterans that are doing that, Tobias Harris is another one, right? He's a very good communicator too. It's very, very important to kind of quarterback the defense. And guys, if you're watching live, feel free to throw in some chat questions. That is, we'll try to get to them as well. But let's go to a couple here from our DBB comments. These were both kind of the same question, so I want to lump them together. Mr. Mojo Ryzen says, at the halfway mark, what would you say is the new best case scenario for this team? And then our guy again, KCP for 3, wants to know, what would you guys say is the best outcome for this season? And actually, let's throw Rames his questions into this as well. What's the realistic pace of winning over the second half of the season? So let's put it down this way, like, what is a realistic expectation for the second half of the season, and what's the best possible outcome that you can envision right now?
I think a realistic expectation is to make the play-in, and then from the play-in make the playoffs that way, which would be huge. Like that might be the best case scenario, but my gut is telling me the best case scenario for this young team is and I think this is just like, I don't think this is realistic, but if they could win a playoff series somehow, like that's the best case scenario to me. I don't think that they're necessarily there yet, and I don't know if the wins will stack up and they'll fall in the right place in the standings to be in the position to even have an opportunity to do that. But they're competitive, man. And like, who knows how the team is going to change or what moves are going to be made at the deadline. I don't think it's going to be anything drastic. But I think they're just playing good basketball right now, and you can't really discount it. Things might go a bit sideways. We probably won't see the wins stack up the way they are right now, because they're coming in at an incredible pace, which is difficult for a young team to keep up with, especially when you are missing a Jaden Ivey. So yeah, I think realistic outcome is make the playoffs. And best case scenario to me is win a playoff series, or like Brad B mentioned in the chat, just being competitive in a series. Or sorry, that was Nick Eddy. I was looking at the comment above. Just be in a playoff series. I agree. That would be incredible and something to build off of going into the next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you could get into the playoffs and maybe win a playoff series, I think winning a play-in game would be a really big win too, honestly, for this young squad. And I can't believe I'm about to say this with the season that they had last year and all the conversation we had in the offseason. A big win for the rest of the season, and subsequently, I think a very realistic goal for this team. They're one game above 500 right now. Do that again. Do
Mhm.
that again. They're 21-20, right? So if they can finish the year somewhere in that 41, 42, 43 win range, I think not only have you as a squad, as a team, exceeded the highest expectations that anyone could have put on them, you've significantly exceeded those expectations. And short of losing Jaden Ivey, which is really impactful, like we just discussed with that Pacers game, this is still the same core group of guys that got them to this spot. They rattled off, what, 6 wins without Jaden Ivey, too, and only 1 or 2 losses. Like, they've shown they can do it. They've shown they can do it. So what I would want to see, and what I think, again, I honestly, I think this is realistic, even though I can't really believe that that's where we're at right now. It's an incredible spot to be in, but continue that. Who was it? I think Brad B. Yeah, Brad B in our live chat here says that they're not catching anybody off guard anymore. That's true, but that's been true for a little bit. I'd say for the past month and a half, maybe, that the Pistons haven't been seeing teams rest guys coming in, or like with Boston trying to get Peyton Pritchard going, right? Things like that. That hasn't been happening. Teams have been knowing that the Pistons are going to give them a good shot and that they got to play their best game in order to get the win that night. And it hasn't been working a lot. The Pistons have been playing really good basketball. So to me, finish it out. Finish it out. Prove that
Yeah.
this isn't a fluke.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you would have told me before the season started that we would both be here and saying like,
I tell you to go back to the mental hospital.
Exactly. Like realistic is to get this team to finish at 500 or above 500, or to be competitive in a playoff series, to win a playoff series, to win a play-in game. Like, yeah, I did not think the team. I mean, it sounds like the like no one really thought that this team was going to do what they're doing right now, which makes you reframe how you think about it. And from the reports we've seen, even the front office is doing that and debatably changing their strategy at the trade deadline to just not just be a dumping ground for other teams' bad contracts, and make sure you're bringing in players that can contribute to this roster, which Trajan Langdon has done in the offseason. So why mess with that recipe now when you've just seen how this can work over half of the season, even though it's not a ton of time?
And like, not to get too far ahead of ourselves or anything, but you look at the standings right now. One, teams behind Detroit right now, Chicago, they seem like they're going to be big time sellers at the deadline. The 76ers, they're just came out today. They're going to be without Joel Embiid for another couple of weeks. The Brooklyn Nets do not want to win any more games. The Raptors do. The Raptors are still trying to be competitive, but they're 10-31. They're quite a ways behind. The Hornets also still loosely trying to be competitive. They've only got 9 wins. And then the Wizards aren't trying to win anything. They've only got 6. There's a big group of teams right around Detroit. You got the Magic at 23-19, Pacers also at that same record, the Hawks at 21-19, the Heat at 20-19, and who knows what goes on with Jimmy Butler there at the deadline, and then the Pistons at 21-20. Stick in that group. If they can stick in that group, they could get as high as like 6 or 5 just by continuing to play the way that they have and letting everything kind of shake out around them. They have nobody coming from behind them. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. And like you said, how incredible is it to be saying that right now? Pinch me. I would have thought you'd be lying to me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And just to see like everyone's been talking about it, but just to see like the national coverage that like Cade's getting, the team's getting, and yeah, it's just like an incredible story in general. And if they can just keep it up, because like you said, we have seen that they're very capable of it. Who knows what it can turn into and how far it can go. I think if you can get to the playoffs, win a play-in game, like you mentioned, like that's something to build off of. And I think that's your goal now, because it's like this team is not anything close to a title contender, but I think the next step is finding something to build off of to take you into that conversation and into that realm. And I think they have accelerated it to be even where they are right now. So yeah, just keep it up. Like you mentioned, it's a lot easier said than done, but like you said, we know that they can do it. We've seen it.
And just to build on what you said right there, and I'm going to lump in this question here from a fella in the DBB comments who asks, "Are the Pistons getting too good too fast?" Look, they've already got the hard part done. The reason that the Pistons are where they are right now is because they put solid veterans and now finally the interesting young pieces kind of fit together a little bit more on the roster. But they put together a roster that more or less makes sense around Cade Cunningham. And Cade Cunningham's been the engine that makes this entire thing go. They've done the hard part. You have the guy on this roster that you build everything else around. Getting that one star, that one franchise player is the hardest thing for any rebuild to do. Getting a second star is not easy. I don't want to make it sound like that. It's a challenge to get the second guy, but it's much easier to get a number two, right? Not a number two option. We can get into the semantics of all that, but a number two star, the guy that's not going to be on the have his face on all the tickets, right? But is going to be up on other marquees. That sort of guy. That's a lot easier to do. So the Pistons have already got the first, and they're showing that with Cade Cunningham, they can be really competitive and play really competitive basketball with him stirring everything and making it all work, making everything go. So I don't think they're getting too good too fast. I think we're just witnessing the leap of a young, good, promising prospect into a legitimate star in the NBA. And now that he's taking that step, now you can act accordingly. They make the play in, right? Or they finish 500, whatever that seed gets them. Not only if I put something competent around Cade Cunningham, can he get them to be playoff relevant? Not only that, but now how much higher can we get just by adding a number two, adding a number three? Right now we're just tinkering. And so no, I don't think they're getting too good too fast at all. I think they're ahead of schedule and it's exciting.
Right. I think if they're getting too good too fast, like the argument is the draft pick there. Like, do you not want to have a first round pick this year? Which honestly, I think where they're at, like they're not gonna be in position to have the top odds to go and win the lottery. Could they end up in the back half of the lottery odds and find some luck and win the Cooper Flag sweepstakes? Sure, that could be really fun, but I don't think you're in a position to really like punt on what's going on right now, because you want to see Cade like continue on the path that he's going and see where this team can go, because you've already seen what you've brought in can work. And like you said, Cade is taking that leap right in front of our eyes and turning into a star, from like going from good to great is not easy to do. And he's shown that he can be that guy. And I feel like this team is getting dangerously close into being like players are going to want to come and play with Cade. Is everyone going to want to do it in this situation? Probably not. But I think there's going to be players that will want to play next to Cade Cunningham. We saw that happen a little bit with Indiana, and people want to go and play with Tyrese Halliburton. So I think the team overall, if you continue this upward trajectory, you're just putting yourself in better position to take that next step. The worst thing that can happen is you middle out and you don't go anywhere. But I think the teams that middle out are the teams that don't have the guy, or they're like, you have multiple guys and you're like, who's really the guy? And you know who the guy is in Detroit and Cade, and he's been the best guard in the East, and maybe even playing the best basketball. I mean, Shea is kind of on another level right now, but Cade is like up in those conversations right now. So I think you just have to see where he can take you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'll just add this in with the pick conversation. something I think tends to get lost is if the pick conveys this year, one, great, right? It means, hey, the Pistons were really good. They made the playoffs, whatever. So leaving all of that aside, the pick conveying this year means you can trade future picks. Right now, the most recent future pick that the Pistons can trade is in 2029, I believe. Might be 2020. I think it's in 2029. The moment that pick conveys, then they can trade one in, what would that be? 2027. Right, because
Yeah,
the next
you
year they'd be
unlock
forced to
here.
keep with the Stepien rule, but you unlock 2027. That can go, right? That could go for getting another star. That can go and be packaged. You could now package two, right? You could do 2027 and 20. I'm just, the flexibility that opens up would not be a bad thing at all. Let's stick on Cade Cunningham for just a second. Just kind of a fun, let's be super positive. What's Cade's ceiling right now? That's Art Vandelay 81 in the DBB comments.
Do you want to take that as in this year or like his career, you think? I mean, probably career.
I think career,
ceiling.
but I mean, let's be honest, he might be close at this point too. Not like exceptionally so, but year 4, he's taken a massive leap, whatever. But yeah, let's go career.
Yeah, I think his ceiling honestly is like a first team all NBA guy. I don't know, like the debate for me here is like, would his ceiling be first team all NBA, or could he ever in however many years get into MVP conversations? I mean, we saw today the NBA's MVP ladder. Cade Cunningham was 9th on that, which is pretty incredible. It definitely puts him in all NBA talk right now this year. And yeah, I think he can be the star of a contender, and maybe a team that wins a championship. Like, I think if you put the right pieces around him, he's just different. And like you said, Wes, it's hard to. That's the hardest part. And of all the years that the Pistons fell to 5th in the lottery, it's a great thing that they won the lottery the year they did and drafted Cade, and he's playing the way he is right now, because there's a lot of number 1 overall picks that teams want a do-over on. Yeah, there's some years that are obvious, but some of them don't work out. And right now with Cade, it's working out. I don't see any reason that it won't in the future. So, I mean, I honestly think I'm being a little conservative in saying his ceiling is first team all NBA, and like he can be the star on a contender team. He might smash through that because he's smashed through like any expectations this year right now. But that's just where I see him going. It's like we haven't seen the team turn into a contender yet. So can they take that step?
I'm about to make you feel really, really good. If you thought that what you said was conservative, I'm about to come in slightly underneath it. So I think I'll take a little heat off of your shoulders, so to speak. Look, I think that Cade Cunningham's ceiling is a top 10 player in the NBA. I'll just put it that way. You got him. You said right now he's 9th on the MVP ladder, which is just insane to think about. But regardless, that's the kind of conversation he's getting right now. I think in another few years, he is going to continue to improve. The thing is, he's already at about 24.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 9.5 assists. His shooting splits are fantastic. 46 from the floor, about 38 from 3, and 80 from the free throw line. At this point, when you're looking at like leaps that he can still take, which there are still a few, you're looking at getting to the free throw line even more than he does. You're looking at pushing that field goal percentage up closer to 50, say, instead of 46, right? And then other than that, that's kind of it. So, like, is Cade Cunningham a guy that's going to ever average 30 points per game? I still think I'm in the camp where that answer is no. I do think he could get up to like 26, maybe 27, something like that. But the guy that he is, to me, is, and I think I've used this before. I don't know if I've brought it up on the podcast, but Chauncey Billups, what he was for that Pistons team that won it back in 2004. He was the best player on that team. Arguably, I would say he was the best player on that team, but he didn't average the most points. He wasn't the most impactful defender, but he was the guy for that Pistons team, right? I think that's going to be Cade Cunningham. I don't know if it leads to a championship. I hope that it does. I don't know if it will, but I think he's that guy. He's the guy where without him, everything's going to crumble. And maybe he's not your points per game leader. Maybe he's not your rebounds leader, but that's the best player. That's your franchise player. And you can build around him. And I'm with you. I think that you can make a very strong contender with Cade Cunningham at the center. So yeah, Cade's really fun. It's really fun.
He's great to watch.
Sorry, not to cut you off, but I know we're short
good
on time because you got a hard out here in a little bit. So let's do this question and then get rolling. This is kind of a fun one. Dave, 10.9 miles north of LCA, one of the best usernames in the DBB comments. So I love it every time I see it. But he says, now what do you think that the Pistons, not what you think the Pistons should do at the deadline, but he wants to know, what do you think they will do at the deadline? So a few weeks out here, Blake, call your shot. What are the Pistons going to do? Doesn't have to be player specific. Doesn't have to be player specific, but like a strategy. What's their strategy right now?
I think the strategy is find a way to address like some of the holes that we know this roster has. So can you bring in a rim protector to be your third big off the bench? And is that valuable? Like, do you want to make a move for that because you have Isaiah Stewart off the bench already? You also have Paul Reed. Like, is that something you want to do? With Jaden Ivey's injury, I think the more likely is you see some sort of initiator brought in, and it might not be a flashy move by any means, but just someone like if you're in a situation like the Indiana Pacers put the Pistons in on Thursday night, like someone else you can go to try and make things happen. I think they will find a way to use their $14 million in cap space, whether it is through taking on a player that can help or absorbing it just to get a draft pick if there's nothing else, because I don't know if Langdon is going to want to just let it sit, because then you have Cade's extension kicking in, and then you have the talks with Ivy and Duran, and after that you quickly get into having to pay Asar and then Ron Holland after that. So I think you're going to see them make moves around the edges, and if you don't see that, or if you see that and then there's some cap space left over, then I'll see them using it and taking on bad contracts to bring in some kind of draft picks, even if they're not great draft picks. I don't think they're making the big move this year. I don't think you mess up what you have right now.
So that last thing that you were talking about there, Blake, that is exactly what my prediction is for the Pistons this trade deadline. Because I think that the report that the Pistons were kind of looking at the deadline differently. They didn't want to just be a team that opens up the cap space to take on any sort of asset. I think that report was getting maybe overblown in the, I don't quite know exactly how to say this. I don't think that when the Pistons let that kind of leak out, assuming that they did, that it means that they're going to go take a big swing. Like you were saying, I don't think that they're going to go and get a superstar or anything like that either. But I do think that they may have changed, and they're going to change what they want back with that cap space. So now instead of, okay, let's take on a terrible contract and get a first round pick, I think that the calculation might instead be, okay, let's take on an overpay contract, but for still a good player that is an upgrade for our roster. And now maybe we'll get a second round pick instead for doing that service. Okay. So now instead of just a total salary dump, you're just looking at guys who are making, 5-10 million more than what they quote unquote should. And so it's still a salary dump, but for the Pistons, it's an upgrade. And I don't know exactly who this guy might be, right? I'm not quite sure. Maybe someone like Cole Anthony or something like that. But that caliber of move, I think, is what we're going to see at this deadline. They're still going to get draft capital, but it's not going to be a first round pick unless they move on from like Tech or Beasley, or maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. if someone really wants that. But they are going to have that cap space get eaten into, just not for a nobody. Now it'll be a somebody, just an overpaid somebody.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting a first round pick for what it's worth. And I'm probably scarred just from all the moves that
I don't either, honestly.
Yeah. Just like all the moves that have been made, and you've seen how much it takes to get back a first round pick. So I'm with you there. I think that's a great assessment, honestly, on like predicting what will happen. Not sure who it is, but yeah, I would be shocked if it's someone that will come in and not help this roster at all and is just a total salary dump.
Yeah. And I think the only like surprising name to watch, because I think all of us are very much on the same page of what we expect, right? They're hoping to take contracts back into their salary space. They're also probing the market a little bit for, say, what could you get for Fontecchio? What could you get from Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., maybe even like a Marcus Sass or something like that. Just those more like veteran names or not star type players that maybe like blow us away, right? We're not looking to trade them, but blow us away. What do you got? I think the only name I might add to that list that, maybe I wouldn't be surprised if we see talk about, but I wouldn't predict it, would actually be Jalen Duren. Like Jaden Ivey's kind of left the extension conversation because of that injury that he had. That could be coming from both camps or just one camp, right? The Pistons might want to see what it's like when he actually gets back healthy. Jaden Ivey might want to like, hey, I took a big leap this year. I'm going to take an even bigger one next year. Bet on yourself, that sort of thing. I'd like personally to get him under a contract extension. I just don't know if we're going to see it. I'm not nearly as confident anymore. But Jalen Duren, I think you're absolutely right. I'd be floored if there were any sort of contract extension there. And because of that, maybe it kind of pops up into a rumor. I could see it. I'm not going to predict it. I'm not making that prediction. If there's a surprise, I think that's what the surprise is.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if like Fontecchio is traded. I will say exactly. My one, like we don't do the takes stuff for really anything, but I was thinking about this today, and I don't know if it's a hot take, but like Isaiah Stewart is kind of approaching untouchable status for me. And it's not because of like the deal he's on, or honestly, like he's a great rim protector. Like what he does on the court is incredible, but just like who he is and that like enforcer guy, and a little bit what he did against the Pacers last night at the end of the game. Like, I don't know if I'd include Isaiah Stewart in any trade, because I know other teams want him and are probably going to ask, but like, I don't know if I'd do it ever, for no matter what it is. If it came down to it and it was the perfect deal, like maybe, but in general, like Stu is kind of like approaching that for me.
I'm right there with you, so I don't think it's a hot take at all. Isaiah Stewart, they just like somehow magically lucked into a guy that every single playoff team wants.
Yeah.
And they're not a playoff team at all, so sometimes it looks rough, but like, or it had looked rough in the past. This year, it's been really, really good. He's everything you want in a backup center.
Yeah.
He can space the floor a little bit. He blocks shot. He's a very good rim protector. He's disruptive in the passing lanes. He's got long arms. He's a great communicator. Like the only thing he doesn't give is a lob threat, but you don't care because he's off the bench and he's super switchable. I want to keep Stewart too, because on top of everything that you said, in like 3 years, if the Pistons are a team that's winning more than 50 games in a season, man, is he going to be a luxury, an absolute luxury to have. So I'm right there with you. Not a hot take to me.
Yeah, cool. I was worried I was approaching hot take realm, but hey, all good. And wow, shout out to everyone for all the great questions. We had so many tonight, and yeah, totally agree with Brad B. Ron Holland has that to him as well. So hopefully, it seems like he's gonna hit right now. We'll see what happens with him, but shout out to everyone again for all the great questions tonight. We got a ton. Reminder, if you want to ask a question and hear your voice on the show, you can call our phone line. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all. Go Lions.